Okay, so a little bit about me, Artem, is that I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I have brown hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a black Microsoft shirt. And I have achondroplasia, dwarfism. And that's a visual cue to people who are visually impaired, because I also do accessibility advocacy. So I wanted to tell you about my journey with OpenAI as an accessibility advocate and a cloud advocate at Microsoft. I do a lot of sessions where I create awareness for developers and for IT pros. And Azure OpenAI is a service that has allowed me to, both with accessibility and also with Java, create these incredible products that we're using right now across Microsoft. Take, for example, this picture that you see in my PowerPoint. I created that with DALL-E. I asked it to create a humanoid android walking with a boy through a forest because I wanted to show how you can unlock the potential of AI with these new technologies. So we're going to start here. I'm going to do a little bit of slides, and then we're going to go into some demo. I'm going to tell you about the introduction, the Azure OpenAI service. We're going to go through GPT, Copilot, and DALL-E. I'm going to show you about semantic kernel, around what is semantic kernel. Then I'm going to give you a demo, a demonstration, and very simple demonstration, so don't worry about it. And then I'm going to go through a conclusion. But in the beginning, I need to tell you a little bit about how we got to this point. So in 1956, we created the ability to take data, raw data, and then process that raw data that exceeded human intelligence, artificial intelligence. After that, in 1997, we created a subset of that called machine learning. So that raw data then that we had, we also wanted to make predictions on decisions on it. So we put it into a bunch of machine learning models, and then we can do machine predictions from that. After that, we created deep learning. So modeled on the human brain, we needed to really make more decisions based on repetition. So given some input, if you train it on that input, then you should be able to do adaptions and decisions based on that input. And finally, the last one is generative AI. It's a subset of deep learning, and basically you take that learning that you made in deep learning and you get it to adapt and generate information for you, visual, written, and auditory. So now that we have that, you can see exactly, this is very new. So on the top of the hype cycle, right at the top of the hype cycle, you can see there, I've got generative AI, and let's go there, generative AI, and it's not even at the peak of inflated expectations. This is the Gartner hype cycle for artificial intelligence 2022, and we can go all the way down to computer vision, which is now in the scope of alignment. So we're at a very early stage. Hopefully we can get that and also responsible AI as soon as possible to the slope of enlightenment. Because we have some weird sentiment going on right now. If you speak to anyone, they say, okay, what's going on right now? This is the sentiment spectrum. Is it good for humanity? Is it bad for humanity? Is it useless or is it capable? So good for humanity and useless, it's just a toy, just really fun, but just a toy. Entertaining, but no real use cases. And then also, over here, we've got bad for humanity and useless, just a statistical parrot, it's dangerous. But immediately when I saw this technology, I thought it's going to unlock human potential. I also thought in the back of my mind, it might enslave us or take our jobs and everything like that. But luckily, Microsoft has focused on the ethical AI. We have an entire team, an entire department just focusing on what does the model do, what is the feedback of our customers and our data scientists, and then go in there and help the model grow into what we consider an empowerment model rather than something that is just, amplifies fake news and hate speech and just generally dangerous. But we're not the only one. The landscape exploded overnight. And this is the source base 10 blog entry here. And you can see that this is actually quite old. There are so many different data and decisions, text and tools, image creation, audio and video tools there that we have. And it's kind of hard to also keep tabs of exactly where we are and what we're doing in that landscape because it's so incredibly new. But we've been in there from the beginning. In June 2021, we launched, in 2020, we launched GitHub Copilot, which was the Codex model. So there are three models, if you remember, OpenAI has Codex, DALL-E, and GPT. So we started using the Codex model from the beginning, and it helped us create GitHub Copilot. We then also, one of the pinnacle milestones is that we launched Azure OpenAI service general availability December 2022. And at the same time that we were launching that, we've also partnered with the Azure, the OpenAI service, because we are one of their main partners and one of their main sponsors. Okay, let's go down there. But this is one of the many services that we actually use on Azure. You can see there we've got applications, application models, scenario-based services, customized AI models, and ML platform, and it's very rich. Azure OpenAI actually forms part of the cognitive services, but you can also use language, speech, vision, and all of those services to plug into Azure OpenAI, and it's incredibly empowerment for developers and also for IT pros, though. You can also do the same. You can plug Azure OpenAI into OpenAI, because both of them have REST services. The difference between Azure is actually linked to your subscription. We have it in Europe. They don't have it in Europe. We have the same models, really. We have Copilot, Teams Premium, and Viva sales. They also have the extensions that they've brought out recently. We support it with our Azure support team, 99.5% SLA. And we also we harden the model with responsible AI, and we tie it into our tried and tested industry-leading Azure Active Directory, role-based access control, customer management keys, private link, and network security. So it ties into your existing Azure infrastructure. So what is GPT-3? I'm going to go a really brief overview of that. So this is creating a prompt, create a tagline for an ice cream shop, and it's going to actually serve up the prompt. Codex would be, here's your customer table, write a secret query for all customers in Texas, and it's going to write that. And then DALL-E prompt a white Siamese chat, and it's going to go through and do that, though. A little bit more deeper. So Copilot, and we launched Copilot X recently, and that is a great way to actually use the chat functionality. But Copilot is basically an assistant. It's an assistant. It's a co-pilot to you being a developer or an IT pro. And we've also launched it into Microsoft Office. We've just done yesterday the security co-pilot, and it allows you to actually go in and use those models to the best of your ability with the existing systems that you have. We also have DALL-E, and I love this. This is an astronaut riding a horse in photorealistic style. I like doing impressionist styles in Monet with my images. You saw there the early image there. A teddy bear working on new AI research, and a bowl of soup looking like a monster knitted in wool. So we're here to speak to GPT-3, but I need to tell you about the traditional model deployments. So traditional model deployments are slow, but they're also part of data scientists. When I say slow, it's not slow for a data scientist. For a programmer, it is. So data scientist is a industry, and then you've got computer science, which is another industry, and they overlap to some degree. But you can see here that they disjoint when it comes to creating the models and also training the data. And it can get a little bit slow around that because you want to be able to get all those models to speak to each other. So what you want is a foundational model, generative foundational model. So it's going to adapt it to the generation. You take all your data, your text data, your images, your speech, your structured data, your 3D signals, and then you train it, and then you adapt it to be able to do all the same tasks as all of those other models did. And when you finish with your training, you can actually have, you can see there, here's one model, the Ada model that we finished training. It's 2.7 billion parameters. And then the Da Vinci model, which is the bigger model. So depending on what you want to use for your models there, some are cheaper, price and performance, and some are quicker. What we do with ChatGPT, which is a little bit of a secret, is we take the Ada model or a smaller model, and we get it to speak to the Da Vinci model. So the chat version of that is a different model compared to the actual pulling of the data. And I'm going to go through that now and show you exactly how that works, though. So this is how we trained it. So we've got the Common Core. This is GPT-3, not 4. So Common Core, 410 billion tokens, web text, and books 1, books 2, and Wikipedia. And then we tokenize it and we vectorize it. So that's putting it into a 2D plane. We eventually create an encoder into latent space for a 3D plane, so we can create basically vectorization of that. We use deep speed and zero for data parallelism and model parallelism. So you can go in and search for a deep speed and zero. They're open source projects there. You can actually do your learning. They basically go in and say, I want to optimize my learning. We then put it on Azure Cloud Compute, and then we have our foundational model. And this is really the secret sauce that we're going to use. But at the same time, how does it actually work with a prompt? So here's the basics of a prompt. A prompt is composed of the following components: instructions, context, input data, output data. And we want to actually go classify the text into neutral, negative, or positive. I think the food was okay. What is the sentiment? That's neutral. So how does that work there? So you've got prompt chaining, so entity extraction, summarization, and sentiment analysis. And those of the prompt training, so in the example that we did, we actually are going to use sentiment analysis. But in this example, you can actually do entity extraction, extract the iPhone from that text, summarization. Now, normally you would use 3 models for this, and then sentiment analysis. So how does this work when the prompt chaining for the GPT model? So you've got your decoder. It uses natural language processing, which actually is natural language understanding and generation. And then we've got a phrase here. Decide whether phrase sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. How can I help you today? And the actual summarization, which could be a different model, but in GPT-3, it's the same model. Customer calling regarding order. What is the actual sentiment analysis, positive? And then also we can use 0 shot, 1 shot, or few shot. So few shot means we can feed it in more data to get the sentiment a little bit more refined, and also to help those prompting to be able to use that prompt chaining. Here's a nice example of using prompt chaining. In this example, we have a news broadcast, and it's going to give constant information, and you're going to put that to Azure Speech Transcription, which is a cognitive service, and then it's going to call the Azure OpenAI, and you've got content analysis and then content creation. Under content analysis, topic classification, entity extraction, keyword extraction, question and answer. But the video summarization is actually part of content creation. And then you've got news article generation, script generation, and also personalization. Another example is also calling a database directly from your HTML code. Here's how many points did LeBron James score in 2021. It'll create the SQL for you and then go in and create it. So now let's look at how ChatGPT works. So in ChatGPT, you have Code Assist. Over here, you can see how to make a request, HTTP request in JavaScript. Now you can see this is few shot, and it's also using the instruct GPT, and I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later, to actually go in and call the GPT model. So it's not calling the GPT model immediately. It's using a chat version. They add a smaller chat, and then it's going update the fetch request and collect weather data on New York City. And it's building up your requests, and then loop through the data and response and place them into a website for temperature and precipitation. So this is how it does it. It uses the feedback loop as you progress through that. It takes the combined ChatGPT model, which is actually created from Instruct GPT, which is the chat dialogue, and then GPT-3, which is actually makes sense of it. The GPT-3 model is really big, but it's slow. But the Instruct GPT model is hyper performant, so it can take in human text and then, if it wants to, go speak to GPT-3. At the same time, the models are being fine-tuned by you, by the feedback loop. And this is how the secret sauce is made there. But this is a bit difficult to write yourself. So I'm going to show you in the demo on how to get started with a very easy, quick chat function. Because unfortunately, Azure OpenAI is great for general purpose models that handle multiple tasks. It is really great for human-like content without preserving data privacy, whilst preserving data privacy and security. It's great for rapid prototypes and quick time to market for many use cases. And you can use a model with little or no training, and also you can explore solutions. You want to tie into your cognitive services, you can. It does suffer from other problems. Now, these problems could be hallucinations, repetition. So if you ever use ChatGPT, sometimes it can actually go in and repeat the answer. Lack of real-world grounding. It doesn't understand what's happening right now. Tier 1 languages work. It might not work necessarily with Ukraine or Russia, but it works well with English, Arabic, French, and Spanish. Interpretability and predictability. It's hard to say what it's going to do next and interpret it. And high variance and novel inputs. If I ask it for a dad joke, it's going to tell me a different dad joke every time. And ethical AI, you still need someone like Microsoft to harden it there. So we created something a little bit different called the semantic kernel, which is a library which wraps around Azure OpenAI. So instead of shipping off iffy once-off GPT functions, you can take a paved path for GPT deploys. Instead of solving problems just with prompts, you can actually mix prompts with native code. Instead of struggling to build it, you can get vector memory for fast prompts, for slow prompts. Instead of building prompt orchestration yourself, you can actually go in and use an emerging common approach using a planner, and then make prompt libraries on your own. You don't want to do that. You can actually use stock ready to go prompts. And this is all available in Semantic Kernel. It's a new library. We only launched it last week. And what it does, it takes the skills, which are pre-existing prompts, it adds them to a planner, which is a sequential step of those skills. It has a runtime, which is hardened. And then the wow, it actually gives you the ability to have in-memory references and also connectors to downstream systems. How this works in reality is you ask it, so you have an ask there, and the kernel will go in, what are the steps for the planner? And then the planner will go, do I need to pull in skills? Do I need to have memories to stop hallucination or data stores? Do I need to connect to your databases or your downstream systems? And then it goes and executes them, and you get new productivity and enterprise grade scaling for your solutions. So semantic functions, let's start with the goal. I want to make a cake. Give me the best chocolate cake a recipe you can think of, and you can parameterize it as you fit. I want to make and you just give it a what? A cake. Give me the best kind of what recipe you can think of. That's a skill. You've just written a skill. Now you can reuse that skill in your other systems, or you can actually check in that skill to your Git repo and say, this is a prompt skill that you can call GPT-3 with, though. You can also go a little bit more, give examples to bring more precision to your ask, examples of cakes, so you can actually, and that's the few shot, and you can inject it with those examples. You can also go advanced semantic functions, ask it to think out loud. Every time you ask a GPT function to think out loud, it actually does a lot more, and then you can take that output and feed it into your subsequent task. So now we're going to go to a demo. I'm perfectly on time now. Let me just make sure I've got a little clock here. Okay, we've got 19 minutes left for our demo. I want to open up that here, and then we can actually go through that. Let me just make sure. Okay, I've got open that, and I want to make sure we've got, where are you? Zoom. There we are. Okay. So the demo, I'm going to go out of PowerPoint. And now I've set up everything on my Azure Cognitive Services. I've got my keys and also my endpoint that I've got here. So that's very important, that I've got all of that there. So I want to show you first with the cognitive service, how to actually get it to hallucinate. And I love this because this really sells the idea of semantic kernel. So I've got my service here, and I'm going to make it hallucinate, which is I'm going to give it too much information, and then I'm going to ask, I'm going to show you how to do a very similar summary skill with semantic kernel. So let's go in here. Now, to make it hallucinate is no small task. I'm actually going to ask it to read a 1,000-page book, the War and Peace. I'm going to go into GPT-3 Playground, and I'm going to say, can you please read this book and summarize this PDF and explain the steps you took to summarize it? And then that's the War and Peace book. It's 1,440 pages. I'm actually going to go, the max length here is 4,000. Let's see if we can get it to hallucinate. 1, 2, yeah, it really send a message explaining your name, and Emma will reply soon. I really broke it because I actually said to it, go outside your realms of comfort. So what I could actually say is generate, over here, generate a summary for the book War and Peace. That's a lot less, and it's already been scaled. Instead of reading a new PDF and go through that, let's see what it is. And it's a much less, and it's going to go through the process here, and it's going to generate a nice summary, and I've set the tokens to 4,000. So it's going to go through all of that and give me a really nice summary here around that. But it did kind of hallucinate here. You can see there, hallucinate through there, because I haven't actually given it generate a 100-word summary for the book War and Peace. I've actually given it not enough information to go by. Let's go here, and now let's go. We just generate a 100-word summary. So you can see prompting is a bit difficult. There we go. And I'm in there. So it's a lot. There's a lot to actually take in, and you have to understand exactly how you do it. It's the same with chatting. So if I want to do in a chatbot here, chatbot also is a little bit difficult to understand. So you're an AI assistant that helps find people information. Rather, let's just say you are a drunk AI assistant that helps people find beer recommendations. We're going to save it there. Yes. And now we're going to go there. Hi. Are you drunk? Let's see. Hi, how can I just say, are you looking for a beer recommendation? Are you are you drunk? Yes, I'm programmed to sound like a drunk AI assistant, provide fun and entertaining experiences for all. But don't worry, I can still provide you with accurate and helpful recommendations. What time of beer are you in me for? But this is a little bit difficult. You can see what I did there, but you can also go to an iOS text bot and look at all of the different prompting that you actually have to do. You have to actually go in and understand all of that just to understand a text bot. But I can go there and I can say, what is the date I need to file my taxes by? Let's just save that there. Save changes. Let's just go enter. And then it'll actually know how to do that. So this is great and everything, but how do we actually programmatically add this to our normal systems though? And that is semantic kernel. So if I go into semantic kernel, you can see there, the semantic kernel is a Microsoft open sourced project here. So let's go to semantic kernel, and you can actually go in there. You can go to aka.ms/semantic kernel, and it gives you learn modules, material, how to deploy semantic kernel, and let's go into that. There are early lessons and embeddings. There's a lot of material that you can actually access here. Dev blogs, technology, language, .NET, and more. You can go through a lot of that there. But what I really like about this in semantic kernel is that you get samples. So if I go into samples, you can see the skill sample. What was that other sample that we wanted to do there? The summarization sample. There's a summary skill there. And I can go into make abstract or readable and summarize. I can go into the summarize skill there. Now look at the difference between the prompt is that I try to do compared to what it says here. Summarization rules. Don't waste words. Use short, clear, complete sentences. Do not use bullet points or dashes. Use active voice, maximum detail, meaning, focus on content. Now we put that into the planner for semantic content, and then we can actually add that to our summarization skill. And we're going to use that now because I'm going to show you how to summarize that without hallucinations. And then you can go into the actual samples here also, and you'll see there's apps. Now I'm going to start an app here for a chat summary bot. So you can go in there and you can get started with that. And there's even a nice video here. So the first thing I'm going to do in that chat summary is I need the kernel to run. Now the kernel is actually in under samples, under .NET, and I'm going to get this little kernel HTTP server. So it's an HTTP server that is running locally on my PC here, and I'm just going to say to it, okay, run the server, and I'm going to use the Azure functions, and it's going to run the server, and it's got all my skills and that entire repository already there. So it's going to go in and process it, and then it's going to say, cool, I'm up. And now you can call a skill if you want. You can call anything, and I'm actually clever enough to connect to any Azure or OpenAI service you have. We haven't connected to it just yet. So let's go back in there. Now we want to go in and we want to start the chat app here. And let's go into Control C that there. Now I'm in my chatbot here. You can see there chatbot summary React, and all I do is I go yarn start. And what that is going to do, it's going to go into my chatbot summary. It's all written in TypeScript. And it's going to go in there and say, okay, you've got some components. You've got an AI summary. You've got a quick tip. You've got the ability to chat history, and a chat thread. And then go speak to the hooks into the semantic kernel. I'm going to tell it what URL to speak to the underlying Azure OpenAI, and then the model is just the ask and the ask result. So let's start it up. And remember, this is all on the semantic kernel website here. It's going to start it up here, and now it's going to say, okay, cool. Do you want to connect to OpenAI or Azure OpenAI? So we already showed you how to do Azure OpenAI. I go into Azure OpenAI, and I can actually go in and get my token. So I'm just going to paste it in here, my token. I do need a model. Now, if you remember there, the model that we're going to use is DaVinci. And I'm going to say we're going to use text DaVinci 003 for GPT-3. And then I'm going to give it the endpoint that we have there, which is the ChatGPT endpoint. Once I save it, it's going to create a chat like we did there with the chatbot, and then it's going to use the function summarize action items and topics to actually go in and retrieve the information for that. Because I don't know how to prompt that. So it's going to say, wow, interact with the chat. So this is a chat that your customer might have or you might have. Do you know anything about cars? Yeah, I love cars. What do you want to know? I'm thinking about buying a new car. Any recommendations? If you're looking for a sports car, I'd recommend a Porsche 911. No one can afford a Porsche 911. If you want something more practical, Honda Civic is a great option. I'm leaning towards something eco-friendly. Any suggestions? The Toyota Prius is a great option. Thanks for the suggestions. And then he'll go there. Do you have any other questions? Actually, I have one more question. What do you feel about electric cars? The future of transport. I agree. Thanks for the help. Thank you. Happy car shopping. Next question. Have you ever seen a penguin in the wild? Totally irrelevant question to car shopping. No, I haven't. I saw them on a trip to Antarctica. They're amazing. Yeah, that's a great experience. I've only seen them at the zoo. This was definitely a trip of a lifetime. Speaking of birds, have you ever seen a live bird? No. What's that about there? Incredible mimicry. And then let's plan to go on bird watching. That's great. So there's a lot going on there. And this might be a call center or a customer talking at no retail shop. And I want to get an AI summary. So the minute I do that, it's going to go to Azure OpenAI. It's going to call the skills that we already saw that we defined. It's going to take the information that we had here, the chat information. It's going to do summarize. It's going to do action items, and it's going to do topics. So in the summary, I just want a brief summary, and I want it not to hallucinate. So the conversation between I and John Doe focused on cars and birds. John Doe recommended the Porsche 911, Honda Civic, and Toyota Prius as a car option, and discussed the benefits of electric cars. He also suggested going bird watching next week, and I recommended looking up videos of live birds online due to the impressive mimicry features. And then it goes through the topic analysis, and you can actually click through here. So if I go through topic, you'll see there what the C# code is. You can actually tie it into your underlying data structures and also projects, and we'll say get a long conversation transcript, identify here, and that will call the underlying skill sets that we saw there. And then also finally, action items here. Can you imagine doing this in a meeting? This is what Microsoft Teams Premium actually does underneath there. So when you speak to Microsoft Teams Premium or Microsoft Office or anything that actually analyzes your chat, it's going to use the semantic kernel to go in and get your action items, get your summary, and then also you can access the SKLure URL whenever you want to, and programmatically go in and change it. It's written in TypeScript, but you can use Python, C#, and also JavaScript for this tool. So that's everything I really wanted to show you today, along with the incredible power of GPT-3, how to get it to stop hallucinating with semantic kernel, how to tie it into your existing systems, and also get through with the standard the programming practices. So let's go from current slides. Let me do that there. I'm working with 4 screens here, so it's always a miracle to do that. From current slides there. So we've done the demo. And now, conclusion, this is the beginning of a very new and exciting era of coding, the era of goal, intent, and meaning, instead of process and syntax. Just like the shift from desktop to web coding 20 years ago, there are places where the patterns will be the same, and there are places they will need to change. Sam Schultz, he's one of our CVPs at Microsoft here. And you know what the hottest new programming language is right now? It's English. Because paired with semantic kernel, you can now go in and create your prompts or your skills, your reusable skills there. You can have possibly a coffee skill or a beer skill that can go in there, and instead of beer recommendations, it knows what to do though. So you can sign up today on aka.ms Azure OpenAI service, and all of the documentation that I mentioned there, along with semantic kernel, the learn modules, and everything is available on that. I'm going to leave it there. And as usual, follow me on at Rory Preddy. Back to you, cloud builders.
Thank you, Rory. It was powerful session, high energy. I really enjoyed it. Personally, my pleasure to see you here. And we have a couple of questions from the audience. First of all, maybe you saw an open letter signed by Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, Andrew Yang, and few leading AI researching, calling for 6 months pause for training AI systems more powerful than GPT-4. What's your opinion on risks of OpenAI race between IT giants, which is introduced recently?
So I can't speak on behalf of other companies, because I can only speak on behalf of what Microsoft does with those models. So we, like I mentioned before, we have an entire section of data scientists that go in there and harden the models that we already have. So we already acknowledge that ethical AI is the number one focus for Microsoft. It is, if you have a model, you have to understand that our customers in the billions trust Microsoft, and Microsoft runs on trust. So we take that model, we go through rigorous testing of every model that we process, and then we look at, do these models exceed our ethical AI considerations? If they do, we go back to the supplier. Remember, Azure OpenAI uses the models provided by OpenAI, and then we harden them. We harden them, or we actually tell our partners the problems that we're experiencing. And that's how Microsoft, as an industry leader, handles this with ethical AI. And you can go into, if we go here, and you can go Microsoft ethical AI, and there's studies to show how we actually go and do responsible AI principles from Microsoft. And I do beseech you to go in there, look at the approach that we use here, look at the management tools, the policies, and the guidelines and the communication that we have around that.
Thank you. We have also a couple of questions related to. Thanks, Rory. Could you shortly explain the way how GPT model handles queries in different languages?
So that's a very, very good question. And unfortunately, the models itself is trained on Common Web Crawl, which is English. So in my experiences, it handles like the tier one languages very well. And the models then will go in and find the vectorization based on the English language. So if you go in and you ask it to do translation in other languages, it's going to go and find the vectorization for the translation in that. And as a result, you're going to get less of an impact if you had a model that was trained with a tier one language. So first, I want to categorically state that if you're using a different language other than the tier one languages, then it is going to go in and possibly hallucinate more. How you can get around that is that you create the skills in semantic kernel. So you would create a semantic kernel, let's just say Spanish, Ukrainian, Russian language kernel, and you'd get it there and you would rinse and repeat until you're happy with that prompt. And then you would go deploy that as part of your production instance though. I wouldn't go as bravely go in and just use the GPT-3 model prompting out of the box. I think the world has kind of moved off from that they rather are looking at operationalization, at using tools like the semantic kernel.
Okay. Also have a question. I think you partially already covered it, but maybe we can extend it. So initially, Abbas asked about ChatGPT making programmers' job redundant. Maybe you can more explain about the shift of the concept from syntax semantics to more to new future of programming jobs from your point of view.
So I've been using Copilot now and presenting it in front of tens of thousands of people. It has not made me redundant. It has made me way more efficient and way more happier. Because what it does, instead of me going, oh, I have to do this mundane task again, I have to create boilerplate, or I have to look up that option on the internet, I can rather ask Copilot to do that. At no point have I actually said, oh my gosh, Copilot can do this better than me, because it can't. Because you still need multiple levels of disciplines to be able to be a programmer. Programming is not just a pushing out codex code, though. And it is more than that. And the principal thing that I like to look at programming is that programming is actually made out of 6 components. So you've got education, relevance, and experience that the programmer actually looks and takes with their knowledge. At the same time, you've got community, culture, and mentorship. They bring the human aspect to it. And that human aspect from community, they understand, wait a second, this is hype or this is baloney and I should follow that. Culture, we're developers. We're culturally prone to certain type of functions, and also drink coffee and have fun and have meetups. And then basically, also the last one is mentorship. When you do something repetitively, you also want to get in other people there, and those mentors will help you drive that though. So programming is not an island on its own. It's the community culture and mentorship, education, relevance, and experience. It's a broad discipline, and we're nowhere near close of generalized intelligence to get anywhere close there. But I love Copilot. It has made my life easier, and it's made me happier.
I see. I see we are running out of questions, not of time, but of questions. And maybe I'd like just to thank you, Rory, for being with us. You are an amazing speaker, and I'm personally grateful to you for cheering me up at the beginning. It makes my day. And I think we will see more interesting things from Microsoft related to ChatGPT in future. Maybe you just can at the end comment the rumors about OpenAI closing the new models, so they are not more open source and only maybe ChatGPT free will be
There
available
is nothing
for
open source
integration.
about any of this, really, because in truth,
Mm,
all of these run on Tesla GPUs the size of your desk and cost more than your fancy bike in the background there. Even if it goes out and gets stolen by hackers, you can't run this. These things are so incredibly powerful. They take warehouses to run. And that's why Microsoft Azure is the lead in this, because we have 60 regions across the world and GPUs, warehouses of GPUs. I'm not worried about this at all, about source code running into the wrong people or around anything like that, because once you have that, it cannot be used. It's like giving a gun without bullets. You cannot use it.
I see. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your mood here and the power.